BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Sutherland, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, keeping you up to speed with everything you need to know about the national game. It is Thursday, the 19th of September, and today we'll be mainly talking about this.
Forrest picks up and then begins to drive forward, looks to slip in, he does a wonderful ball, and Amina! Number 5 for Celtic!
We look back on a special night in the East End of Glasgow and ask what it means for Celtic's European ambitions this season. We'll hear from manager Brendan Rodgers.
Second half, wow. Just the greed of the players, the hunger, the pressing, the counter-pressing, just the mentality of the team. I was so proud, and obviously then the quality of the goals was sensational.
And after what's been described as a complete midfield display, how far can new signing Arne Engels go?
Arne Engels, up he steps, right footed, same corner, same outcome!
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
We are joined today on the Scottish Football Podcast by the former Celtic midfielder Scott Allan and the sports editor for The Scotsman, Mark Atkinson. How do we sum things up about last night? First to you, Scott, very briefly. In fact, in one word, how would you describe that performance and result?
In one word, I would say perfect. Perfect in terms of how Celtic wanted to start this campaign. They've got their goals. The one we think would be the goal they conceded, but that was special as well, to be fair. So I think in terms of what Brendan Rodgers was looking for, his team brought that. They got goals. The goals were shared around the team. The intensity that they played with was they couldn't deal with it. So for me, it was perfect, a perfect start to the campaign.
Perfect, the word for Scott Allan. Mark, what are you going to go for?
Impressive stuff from Celtic. Really enjoyed their performance last night. Really enjoyed the occasion. Celtic Park at its very best in terms of its atmosphere and the excitement around the stadium, and they laid down a marker for their Champions League campaign, albeit against limited opposition in the sphere, but you could not fail to be impressed by what Celtic served up last night.
It was quite sensational. Quite often when you're Scottish after a Champions League night, you're not sure quite how to feel, but that was certainly a feel-good performance from Celtic last night, and no mistake. No headlines today because there's really only one. Celtic's sensational 5-1 victory over Slovan Bratislava at the 13th attempt. It was almost unbelievably their first win in an opening game of a Champions League campaign, and what a way to do it. Mark, you've alluded to it already. You were there. A lot is made of the atmosphere at Celtic Park on these European occasions, but yeah, how would you sum up last night? I know, obviously, the Slovan Bratislava manager was blown away by it as well.
Yeah, it felt a little bit different last night, right from the start, because there was this expectation level for Celtic. Now, Celtic's previous Champions League openers at home have been very difficult. I think the crowd knew that they had a winnable match here, but they didn't put too much expectation. It was just pure excitement. The noise from the stadium when the anthem was played was deafening. And they got behind the team very early on, and that just allowed Celtic to go and do their thing. Celtic obviously are in a very good place right now, domestically, and they went in with a real spring in their step. And you could tell early on that this was going to be a Celtic victory. Slovan Bratislava had maybe one occasion when they threatened, but once Celtic got that goal, and they should have scored well before, Liam Scales' opener.
It's a near post delivery.
They really had Slovan Bratislava where they wanted them, and I actually thought they should have won by more. It sounds daft after a 5-1 victory, but they created so many chances and they forced Slovan Bratislava into so many errors that this could have been a real pasting. We saw that Bayern Munich beat Zagreb earlier in the competition by 9-2. I mean, it could have been that kind of scoreline, and that's a real testament to what Celtic served up last night. It gives them so much confidence and gives them a real platform to build on in this tournament where, of course, it will get tougher.
Scott, it must have been incredible to be a Celtic player last night after that performance. Next level was the sort of mantra from Callum McGregor after the game as well. Watching that last night, do you feel like this Celtic side, have they engineered an extra gear for themselves?
I just think tactically and technically, which allows you to do the things that they do on the ball, it's just came together this season so far. I think you add the intensity of the fans in with that. That's what you can get, and that's what they gave their fans. Some of the football was excellent. Even I think Mark touches on some of the chances. There was one they played all the way from Castle Schmeichel, and it fell to Maeda, and if he scores, it's an incredible goal, especially at the level that the Champions League is. So I think just what Brendan Rodgers has worked on this summer and what we've seen domestically, it's only going to get better from what I can see.
Let's talk about some of the individual performances. It was an incredible display by Arnie Engels, Celtic's record signing. A few stats to roll out. Only the second player to score and assist on Celtic Champions League debut, 23 years after the great Henrik Larsson did that against Juventus. So decent company. A goal, an assist, 4 shots, the second most tackles and duels won. Scott, he's really hit the ground running at Celtic Park, hasn't he?
Yeah, he really has, and I think getting that penalty against Hearts at the weekend, that allows you to kind of feel comfortable with your new teammates, and he's added to that last night. Fantastic performance, albeit Slovan Bratislava didn't really offer much in terms of attacking threat and couldn't match Celtic's intensity, but you can only play what's out there, and I thought the only thing it was missing was a goal from open play from him, because he looked to get his shots away, which I think Celtic fans will be really excited about. But for me, great performance, it settled in really well, and it's interesting, isn't it, because a few weeks ago Bernardo was fantastic, so Engels must have done really well in training for him to go with them so early on in his career.
It is incredible, and Mark, it's incredible how football can change so quickly, and results obviously dictate that. It wasn't that long ago, all the question marks were over Celtic's recruitment in the summer, and fans maybe not altogether too happy about it. They did push the boat out and get Engels. It's just another example, isn't it, of Celtic getting the recruitment right?
Yeah, they've gone next level here with Engels as well. They've obviously spent big fee of around £11 million for this guy, but you can see why. He's only 21 as well. That was what was so impressive last night. This is a guy that's only just arrived at Celtic, really still finding his feet. Yeah, he came in and he played beautifully. He's such a elegant football player, really good set piece delivery. For the first goal, that cross that he puts in for Liam Scales, all Scales has to do is meet it. It's all done for him. The pace and the trajectory, the range of passing as well. He can go short, he can go long. He's very physical. He wasn't at all cowed by the Slovan Bratislava tactics. They tried to really get into him early on, and he stood up to those challenges. And he showed great composure to score his penalty. Just that looks at a really, really technically gifted footballer and has fitted into that Celtic midfield seamlessly. And Brendan Rodgers spoke when Matt O'Reilly left about how important it is to keep the synergy between those three midfielders that he's got. And you would say right now that Celtic don't miss O'Reilly at all, and that's probably the biggest compliment you can give Engels, is that he's come in and Celtic look as good, if not better, for his presence. Early days, of course, with new signings, and they always impress when you see them do well to begin with, but really like what I've seen so far from him, and he just gives Celtic a real presence and quality in that part of the team.
Scott, it's always kind of easy to get excited about the new boy in the door and sometimes take the guys that have been there for a little while for granted. But last night as well, Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, Daisen Maeda, Kyogo Furuhashi, so many players played so well last night. For you, who were the standout performers, apart from Engels?
Apart from Engels, I love Maeda's energy.
From goal, Hatate, wonderful feet, pokes it to Maeda, Maeda goal! The 3-goal advantage restored by Daisen Maeda. Wonderful link-up between Hatate, Kyogo, and then Maeda, who plays it beyond
I think he's a real catalyst to allow Celtic players to go win the ball back, even when he doesn't win it. As a unit, I don't know if you noticed how far Carter Vickers was inside Slovan Bratislava's half at times, and they just suffocated them. But for me, Cal McGregor dictated everything again. And I think when you've got someone like that, when you're in Engels coming into the squad and you've got someone who can open up and play through the lines as quick as he does, it allows you to shine, and it did. So for me, the midfield three, excellent. Felt Greg Taylor had a really strong game, apart from obviously the clearance. I thought obviously a lot of people speak about, is he going to play in the Champions League games? I thought he was excellent, albeit the clearance for then leads to the goal, but I think he would be really happy with how he played in terms of on the ball and defensively apart from that.
It's our job, in fact, no, our duty in the media to get carried away at times, and we will maybe get a little bit carried away. We'll certainly look to the future in terms of Celtic in this group, but we'll be critical as well in terms of where they go from here. Scott, what did you make of Slovan Bratislava last night? You know, I think for a lot of Celtic fans, it was seen as a match that they needed to win in terms of Champions League potential progression. I don't know if many Celtic fans thought it was going to be quite so emphatic, but what did you make of Bratislava overall?
I think Weiss, when he goes through, should maybe hit it first time and give them maybe something to grasp onto, because in terms of how they were wanting to play it, I can't envision that was how they had set up. But you can set up all week for how you want to play in terms of dominating the ball, but the intensity that Celtic press you at, and when they give the ball, the reactions of the Celtic players, it's very difficult then to get a foothold in the game and control the ball. And I think it was a case of, I think they're probably a better opposition what they showed, but how Celtic played kind of stopped them getting any sort of foothold in the game and allowed Celtic to control the game.
Mark, as I've mentioned, it is our kind of job in the media at times to be critical. Were there any negatives for Celtic on the night as far as you could make it?
Not really, to be honest. You could possibly argue the goal.
Arsegian looking to link with Strelic. Is not a good clearance. Tolic lays it back. Shot comes in. Oh, top corner! That is some finish. I think it was Kevin Wimmer.
But it comes from a poor clearance, but Kevin Dimmer's finish is outstanding, takes a wee nick off Cameron Carter-Vickers as well. So I suppose maybe at the beginning the game was slightly open and they did have a couple of moments, Bratislava, but no, I can't really see many negatives at all from last night. It's exactly what Celtic wanted. What I'm pleased with is that Celtic took the opportunity, because Slovan Bratislava, they are relative novices at this level, and they're not used to playing at Celtic Park and in that environment. We talk about Celtic being spooked when they play really big teams. I thought Bratislava just didn't handle the occasion very well at all, and Celtic made sure that they took full advantage. That's all they could do. To win so comprehensively, it sets a marker, and that it's job done. It's job done by this Celtic team, and there's been times when this Celtic team hasn't done its job at this level. So that's the really pleasing aspect from a Scottish football perspective. And now it's about taking that on, because it will get tougher. There's no doubt about that. The young boys might be the only team of Bratislava's level that they play, and even then I think they're better than Bratislava. So it was a game where in some respects you could argue that they had a lot to lose as well. They certainly didn't do that. They gained everything and more. And I think that it's going to be transformative for those Celtic players, because they'll feel so much confidence and grow from that result and that performance.
We'll have a look at the games to come and what Celtic might be able to achieve in this Champions League group in a moment. Let's hear a little bit of what the Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers had to say after the match.
Yeah, the competition stops now. We play Bayern Munich in the final. But no, it was a great night for everyone. I thought that you just sensed it before the game, the feeling in the crowd, and but no, so proud of the team. The intensity of which we played at with and without the ball was so good, and yeah, it was a great night. I think we got in the lead. It was a great ball in and a really good header with some other chances in the first half, but I felt we just needed to play a little bit quicker. We were just a fraction slower on the ball than what we would have liked, and maybe when we had 3 touches instead of 2, and just because our touch and pass tempo is very good when we get the rhythm in the game, but still we were strong in the first half, and then we just reiterated a couple of things at half time, and then really second half, wow, just the greed of the players, the hunger, the pressing, the counter pressing, just the mentality of the team, I was so proud, and obviously then the quality of the goals was sensational.
Brendan Rodgers, he praised the team's greed, hunger and mentality after the match. You know what, Scott? I almost feel like Brendan Rodgers is on a bit of a hiding to nothing sometimes when it comes to getting praise, because everybody expects Celtic to be utterly dominant, certainly in the domestic game. But goodness me, I feel like he really does deserve praise this season in terms of we know what Celtic were like last season, and they were successful, but it wasn't always the football that we're watching now. This season, it's been quite incredible to watch, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think from the early pre-season games, you've seen that. I think that was the question: was it? Is it just because it's pre-season? But it wasn't from the get-go. Domestically, Celtic as a team, the players last year, some who came under a bit of pressure from fans and obviously media as well. He's making players better. He's made the team better. They've added to their game, which we've seen last year. I just think what he's got now, the recipe, if you're a Celtic fan, going to Celtic Park every week, you're excited. There's guys getting the fans off seats, which is one of the most important things with football, and they're delivering with the results as well. So the recipe that he's served up the Celtic fans this season so far has been nothing short of fantastic.
Mark, there were some Celtic fans who weren't too happy about the return of Brendan Rodgers. You don't hear much from them nowadays, do you?
No, the sense have gone quiet. I think Brendan Rodgers, and he fully merited some scrutiny in the winter because Celtic weren't at their best. But when a new manager comes in, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. They played a certain way under Ange Postecoglou, and they also were managed a certain way because he had a very specific man management style, different to Brendan Rodgers. I think Rodgers, what I really admire about Rodgers is that he had the sort of adversity, if you want to call it that, when Rangers pushed them last season. He didn't hide. He responded brilliantly, and he got his team to respond as well. And they actually sort of sprinted through the finishing line, and they just continued that this season. And that's a sign of a really strong manager who has got everybody pulling in the right direction now. That I remember that game against Hearts, I think back in December last year, where you had protests at Celtic Park. I mean, that is it's laughable now when you see what is happening there. 2024 has been such a good year so far for Celtic, and Rodgers has got his team where he wants it, and he's got the players that he needs now to execute what he wants to do. You can see the Celtic team just going from strength to strength under him.
Indeed. Let's put a bit of context then in terms of this Champions League and how it might work. Obviously, it's new for everybody. So the top 8 automatically go into the last 16. To get into the playoff part of this, you have to finish between 9th and 24th. Now, the Boffins have been crunching the numbers, and they reckon that 16 points almost guarantees a top 8 place. And you wonder a little bit, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, can Celtic actually aspire to that? Obviously, they've got 3 points on the board. You'd need to win 5 matches and then a little bit more. And then you've obviously got the Swiss side, Young Boys, you've got Leipzig, you've got Bruges, you've got Young Boys, I've mentioned them. Away you've got Atalanta, Dinamo Zagreb. And then, of course, you've got Dortmund away next. They won 3-0 away to Club Bruges last night. Just first on Dortmund, how confident do you think Celtic should be, Scott, going there? It's obviously probably the toughest match that Celtic will have to face in this group stage.
In terms of confidence, they'll know they can score goals, and I think that's the one thing about this Brendan Rodgers team. They're creating chances. It's whether they take their chances against Dortmund. They'll be limited. I think last night you look at the ones Kyogo has. I think you'd be disappointed with a few of them. He should be finishing them, and I think that will be the difference come Dortmund. When they do get chances, because Celtic will create chances. Can they take them at the right times, and then can they defend well when they don't have the ball? It will be a completely different game. If they get their things right, then you just never know.
They are sitting second out of 36 at the moment, just behind Bayern Munich, who obviously demolished Dinamo Zagreb. Obviously just one game played, but it doesn't matter. How far do you think Celtic can go in this revamped competition, Mark?
I still think it's going to be a tall order to finish in the top 8. I know it looks good right now, but there's that we're going to learn a lot more about Celtic in the next 3 matches. I've always thought that the playoff is a achievable goal for Celtic, even before last night. Just, I think the fixtures they've been given are kind at this level. They play Dortmund and then they play Atalanta. We saw Dortmund win last night. Atalanta play against Arsenal this evening, and we'll find out more about them. But they're Europa League holders. Dortmund were finalists of the Champions League last year. We're not talking just a step up in opposition. We're talking several steps up in the level that they're going to face. Away from home, we all know how Celtic have struggled in the Champions League, and historically, they will go into those games as underdogs. If they were to get anything out of those 2 matches, it would be a positive result. They then welcome Leipzig to Celtic Park, and that will be probably a better reflection of how Celtic have progressed and whether we can actually speak about them as being top 8 candidates. I think, though, if you're going to be top 8 candidates, ultimately you have to go and get a statement result away from home. And I still don't know if the Celtic team is strong enough. I still don't know defensively if they can withstand pressure that they did not see last night from Bratislava. It's going to be really, really testing in Dortmund. Huge atmosphere there. They're still a good side, a very, very good side. So I have to temper expectation a little bit for Celtic, but I do think that what last night allowed is for them to look at it and go, right, playoffs are very much achievable. If you think they play Club Brugge, they play Young Boys at home, and they also go to Zagreb, who shipped 9 goals to Bayern Munich, you could argue that 12 points is a very realistic target for the Celtic team, and that will put them on the premises for sure. So there's excitement there, but I do think we have to say, look, at the same time, top 8 is still a very tall order for Celtic in this sphere.
How do you feel, Scott? Do you think top 8 would maybe be a bridge too far?
I just think at the moment it's very hard to judge because we're taking this game in isolation. The level of opposition, I think, is echo what Mark says. The next 3 games, you're really going to know what Celtic are going to be looking at in this campaign. But a lot to be excited for. I think that was the main thing from last night. Excitement, and look at us all. We're all now talking about top 8 after a win. I think that's where we kind of wanted to be with Scottish football and Celtic, and they've definitely gave us that.
And just finally, Scott, I mean, Championship leaders Falkirk, they travelled to the East End of Glasgow to face Celtic in the League Cup quarterfinals on Sunday. They've been going great, Falkirk, top of the Championship, but I guess they'll be hoping for the mother of all European hangovers for Celtic.
Yeah, the thing is, I know John McGlynn really well. He won't change. Even though it's Celtic, he'll play the exact same way he plays every week. They'll go, they'll try. He'll probably tell his players, you can control this game. So I'm actually really looking forward to that one. Really looking forward to it. Probably a step too far, but one thing about John McGlynn, they'll try and play.
Great stuff. That's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Scott and Mark. And remember, you can catch the Champions League highlights on the BBC iPlayer. And the Scottish Football Podcast is here, refreshed and renewed every day. So to be alerted when new episodes are out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Scottish Football, the gift that keeps on giving. Thanks for listening.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer. But then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me?
This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangest Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.